How will Doom Eternal conclude? With the Ancient Gods Part 1 quickly achieving widespread praise, speculation arose. What lays in store for the expansion sequel? What is the ruler of Hell after? Can we translate the Sentinel language? And what about other mysteries concerning the demonic Crucible? Well, with those questions in mind, let's discuss Doom Eternal's Dark Lord. I'm afraid I'll be discussing spoilers found in both Doom Eternal's campaign and the Ancient Gods Part 1. So if you haven't played through them yet, a caution, spoilers ahead. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Formerly on Doom Eternal, the Slayer halted Hell's invasion of Earth by defeating the Icon of Sin. However, challenges remain. Throughout the Slayer's journey, he ventured to the heavens and defied the angels known as Makers, along with the ancient Khan who had led them astray. But upon their defeat lay a vacuum, one that was quickly filled with the forces of Hell, corrupting the once holy realm. To put an end to this, a mysterious figure known as the Seraphim led the Slayer to awaken an ancient god known as the Father, in hopes that he may turn the tide against Hell. Or at least that was the Seraphim's intent. Choosing the path of perpetual torment, the Slayer instead awakened the Dark Lord of Hell, and that only upon his defeat may Hell's forces truly be routed. Yet as the ancient god awakened, his identity was shown. The Dark Lord and the Slayer resemble one and the same. What does this mean exactly? Well, let's find out. The story of the Dark Lord is indeed a complicated one. It involves the creation of Doom's universe itself. In the beginning, the Father engineered creation. His place of rest became known as Erdak. Here the Father labored until he forged a realm known as Jakad. A doting parent, the Father gifted the children of this new world burning ambition and passion. To steward them, the Father fashioned one who would lead its denizens. And thus a primeval was born. One of the Father's first gods, a being known as Devoth. Under his leadership, the realm of Jakad grew both prosperous and powerful, with its people achieving great marvels and fulfilling challenge after challenge. They sought to create the perfect society. However, frustration grew, for Jakad's people were held back with mortality, an obstacle not shared by the Father nor his pantheon. Discontent with the status quo, Devoth led all of Jakad in a search for everlasting life. All the while the Father watched from afar, foreseeing that he may one day challenge him for this claim of knowledge. To prevent this, the Creator sealed the world of Jakad away. With the realm's abandonment, Jakad slowly corrupted and fell into darkness. Devoth, driven to free his now rejected world, sought to bend the walls between realities. The Father, fearing that Devoth's rancor may put all of creation at risk, sent lesser gods in an attempt to halt Jakad's advances. However, the growing hordes of the now Hell both defeated and assimilated anything it came into contact, and in his conquest against the Father's reign, Devoth's prowess was shown. His strength grew far beyond what the Father placed in him. A final confrontation became the only solution. The Father entered Hell and challenged the now Dark Lord. Blinded by his fervor, the Lord drew him in. The Father stripped the Dark Lord's essence, and in his defeat, sealed him away within a life sphere, trapped within the blood swamps of Hell. There he lies still, and even more, in silent suffering. Deeply saddened with his own many divine errors, the Father withdrew from the physical realm. With support of the Seraphim, his most trusted aid, the deity departed within his own life sphere, resting alongside his children. However, questions remain. Why does the Slayer resemble Devoth? To help address this, let's discuss the Dark Lord's connection with the Night Sentinels. Within the Book of the Seraphs, Devoth's fall is depicted, displaying him wielding the Slayer Crucible along with what appears to be Night Sentinel armor. To explain this, we head to the history of the Sentinels Part 9, when concerning the Slayer's own time with their civilization. which states, "He rose unbroken by the ritual, his eyes burning with Maker magic. He took the crucible in his hand, and wraith fire leapt forth from the blade, as only it will when held by a true Sentinel warrior king." As stated from this codex entry, does this infer that the crucible can only be wielded by a quote, true Sentinel warrior king? If that is the case, what do we know about Sentinel kings? Well, there are a number of them, but the first should be specially noted. The lore states, "With the ancestral beasts driven back to their bleak valleys, we rose. We tiled the fertile land whose banded beasts of burden, and built towering cities. In the hallowed palace on the obsidian throne, we crowned King Omero the Father, the first of the line that shall weigh in perpetuity." Obviously, the name of Omero is a reference to John Romero, but what more do we know about the first Sentinel King? While the lore is left intentionally ambiguous on that score, there really isn't that much information on this individual. Was he somehow related to Devoth, or did he act independently of him? Who can say? But there is one hint we can work with. Sentinel art. Found all throughout Sentinel locations, certain depictions are found within stained glass. We see a knight wielding a certain artifact, the demonic Crucible. Unlike the former Slayer variant, this Crucible is a bit more mysterious. First seen in Doom 2016 following the defeat of Hellguards, its retrieval by the Slayer is welcomed by the spirits of fallen Sentinels, almost as if they welcomed the idea of its retrieval. Interestingly, the demonic Crucible can be seen wielded by another entity, this demonic-looking figure. What makes matters more complex is that some statues depict him wielding the Crucible, while others do not. Why is that? In a past video, I mistakenly thought the entity that wielded the artifact was the Dark Lord. Obviously, that is not the case. So, who is he? To this end, let's head to the Fortress of Doom, within a room featuring the same statue albeit in a ruined state, along with Sentinel writings found right beside it. An interesting symbol is hidden behind the statue, a Slayer mark. What does this mean? Within Sentinel iconography, an explanation may be found, in which three symbols sharing a similar style are fashioned. They appear to represent the caste system, one for the knights, the second for the monarch, and lastly the priests. When I first encountered these symbols, I'll admit I didn't think much of them. However, there is another factor to mention: Devoth's tattoos. Considering how the Dark Lord is an ancient being, stated to be one of the Father's first gods, it may be possible that his birth predates most of the Doom timeline, which may include the Knight Sentinel Society. So a question arises regarding the origin of the Slayer mark. Did Devoth originally create the symbol? Well, it may be a possibility. That being said, there may be another piece of information that could tie into this. It was discussed in previous videos how a fan received a Mark of the Slayer tattoo and showed it off to game director Hugo Martin. He responded, "By the way, not too many people know this, but the Slayer's mark is a symbol of a sword crucible stabbing down into flames hell." Now, is this exchange legit? Well, let's look deeper into it. Within Sentinel murals, the mark of the Slayer can also be seen right alongside the demonic crucible that is literally stabbing down into flames. In fact, the Sentinel figure that holds the crucible can be seen in a similar fashion, wielding it down to fire. So, in other words, currently I am of the opinion that the Slayer mark may allude to the crucible stabbing down into hell. Applying this to the Dark Lord, this could make sense, considering how he is both the ruler of hell and wielded the Slayer crucible. But there are a few unanswered questions. What are the origins of the demonic crucible? Who is the knight and demon who wielded it? To address these mysteries, let's first talk about what powers the crucible in the first place. It was stated that wraith fire emits from the blade. In other words, both crucibles are associated with the wraiths, as stated by the History of the Sentinels Part 1. In the days before man first spoke, an immense shard of rock and metal was cast unto the world from the heavens. Thunder and cataclysm shook the land as the skies were torn asunder. The cosmic spear cleft a hole through our mortal lands pole to pole, from the cold wastes of the umbral plains to the fetid swamps of Ironfang. The womb of the world opened, and the elemental wraiths, the firstborn, spilled forth. They took to the skies, fierce in their emancipation. In their exaltation, they brought vitality to the land, and all that felt their breath were awakened from eternal slumber. Fierce beasts and an unforgiving biosphere rose in the passing of their shadow, as the wraith call echoed across Argent Denor. In brief, some sort of an asteroid pierced the Sentinel homeworld. Upon impact, beings known as the Wraiths emerged. Through their power, they gave life. First were the Titans, and later the Sentinel civilization. That being said, how do the Wraiths tie in with the creation story of the Father? Are they a part of his pantheon of deities, or are they more closely aligned with Devoth? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine on that score, but there may be some hints we can work with. Within Sentinel art, we often see the symbol that resembles the meteor. Interestingly, the same symbol is seen on a church bell found on Earth, along with Sentinel engravings. Well, it was stated that Sentinels settled on other worlds. The lost city of Abeth and the cultist base are good examples of this. What is interesting about both ruins is that they both depict the same demonic crucible entity, but with one notable exception. The city of Abeth depicts the statue wielding the crucible, while the cultist base variant does not. In other words, it may be possible that older variants of the statue display him wielding the crucible, while relatively newer ones fail to do this. Why is that? Well, it may have something to do with the crucible being stolen or taken away, as seen in Doom 2016. But what of the entity as seen in the statues, or a knight seen in a similar position? Well, these two beings might be the same person. It was stated in Sentinel lore that the first Sentinel King presided over the building of the Cathedral of Reflection, which acted as a hub to rein in the Wraiths. Moreover, in Doom 2016, the demonic crucible acted as a medium to free the Wraiths. In summary, it may be possible that a former Sentinel King, whether it be the first or not, originally wielded the demonic crucible. This individual may have held some influence over the Wraiths. In time, for whatever reason, he became this demonic entity. An event like this is not unprecedented, however. Many Sentinels have chosen the path to become marauders. At any rate, this crucible became lost in hell. But does he have any connection with Devoth? Well, here's where things get a bit tricky. In a previous video, I discussed the tree prophecy, where in Doom 2016 in Kandingar Sanctum, you hear these words emanating from this demon tree. In short, this Dark Priest, through the power of the Crucible, will be a serious threat in the future. Who is this Dark Priest? Well, we can rule out the Diag Priests for obvious reasons. So, is the Dark Priest the Dark Lord? Well, I don't think so, considering how in other recordings the Dark Lord is specifically mentioned. So, who is this Dark Priest? Well, it might have something to do with this concept art, containing both a knight wielding the demonic crucible and this priest. Now, who is the latter? Well, he strikes a resemblance to the statues found all throughout the game. This entity that seems to be wielding some kind of an orb or portal. So, who is he? Well, upon closer inspection, he seems to have maker tentacles, similar to ones used by angels, seraphs, and so on. In other words, he might be a maker himself. The only other clue we have in terms of an identification comes from game icons, which one refers to the entity as a graven image. Within Doom 2016's multiplayer, you can look into the entity's portal, where you can see a greenish environment. I'm not entirely sure what location lies on the other side. Perhaps some modders watching this video can provide some insight. At any rate, is this entity the Dark Priest that will work with the knight who wields the demonic Crucible? I'm not entirely certain, but I do find it highly likely we will learn much more about these two, whether it be in a sequel or Ancient Gods Part 2. Unfortunately, we don't really know much more about these two other than what I have listed. But there is the possibility of translating the Sentinel language to learn more. And back to the broken statue found within the Fortress of Doom. In addition to the Slayer mark hidden behind the crypt, Sentinel engravings can also be seen, which leads to the possibility of translating them. For months, I've tried my best to make out the Sentinel language. So, here are my results. To start off simple, let's begin with the Super Shotgun concept art. Seems pretty vanilla, right? Well, if you look closely, there appears to be Sentinel engravings etched on its shells. If we use the alphabet as a reference, we get 12GA, probably a reference to 12 gauge. In other words, does the first and seventh letter of the Sentinel language just refer to ANG respectively? Well, not exactly. To understand this a bit better, I called on a friend Hubert from Artreii, where he makes excellent videos on fictional languages such as Sindarin, Dothraki, along with others. So instead of explaining the process myself, I think it's best if he told you. Take it away, dude.
Both the Sentinel and Maker languages found in Doom Eternal were developed by a concept artist, Emerson Tongue. While the latter is very straightforward, being just the English alphabet with a new coat of paint, the former is much more complex. According to Tongue, the Sentinel language is based on Arabic, Aramaic, and Sindarin, the Elvish language. With the Super Shotgun concept art in mind, do the other characters in the Sentinel language refer to English? Well, this is where we run into some issues, as the English alphabet has 26 characters, while the Sentinel one contains 47. As a result, I placed both the characters and Sentinel phrases within a Python script and conducted a frequency analysis, where I would receive the percentages of the occurrences of the characters used within the Sentinel language. According to my findings, a considerable portion of the Sentinel alphabet is seldom used at all. So, is it a full-blown language with its own grammar? Is it just the English alphabet, or was it made purely for aesthetic purposes? Well, there are certain phrases found within the game that denote the verbal Sentinel language. A good example of this is Karen Tuk, which is assumed to mean rip and tear. Additionally, Sentinel has also many terms referring to the demons found within the game. With this in mind, that would make the language completely original, also making it much harder to decode. That was when we encountered the Gallery Nucleus Doom Eternal panel, in which the Doom Eternal concept art team held a live Q&A over on Zoom. To be brief on its contents, Emerson Tongue confirmed that unlike the Maker language, Sentinel cannot be translated. He said that it was essentially made for aesthetic purposes. It was also stated that the panel's stream would be uploaded at a later date, but it hasn't just yet for whatever reason. But if the Sentinel language is not translatable, then how were we able to translate the engravings found on the Super Shotgun shells, but literally not anywhere else? Well, Emerson Tongue did not create this piece of concept art. It was actually developed by another artist by the name of Felix Levendecker. With this in mind, I am of the current opinion that the Sentinel language was originally not meant to be translated for most cases. I say most cases, considering how examples exist where the Sentinel alphabet may be translated under an English framework. The previously mentioned Super Shotgun shells are a good example of this. But back to the Fortress of Doom, what do these Sentinel writings indicate? Well, for that, let's get back to Night Owl.
If we were to apply the same logic we used on the Super Shotgun shells to these inscriptions, we will get FDW. Now, does that mean anything? Honestly, I have no idea. Does this provide some hint on this entity? Does it mean nothing at all? Or is it just the work of a developer just messing with us? Here is where we hit a bit of a brick wall in terms of research. Despite looking over sentinel phrase after phrase, we couldn't find much, but that goes doubly so for hidden voices found within the game. I know many viewers comment for me to look into these hidden voices, such as the ones in the Fortress of Doom and within the lost city of Abeth. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to decode much. I even called on a friend of mine, Nemiko, who specializes in audio work, to help out. We did find some success. For example, here are some voices we made out. But other than the occasional word here and there, we couldn't really make out that much. According to Nemiko, these voices sound like they are drenched in reverse reverb. And basically the audio designers place sounds in reverse and add reverb, and then reverse it once more so that the reverb is backwards but the audio is forwards. A good example of this is the song Mutilated Lips by Ween. On a side note, I suspect some of these hidden voices are actually reused from Doom 2016, as seen here. Adding on to that subject, just because we weren't able to decipher these hidden voices doesn't mean it's not possible. If anyone is able to make out these sounds, feel free to get a hold of me. Would love to know more. But there is one last thing to discuss. Why do the Slayer and Devoth resemble each other? Well, there really is only speculation on this front. Is the Slayer just a reincarnation of Devoth or something? One theory I heard floating around resides in the Book of the Seraphs Part 11, which states, "The Seraphs remembered that when the Dark Lord's lifeless body tumbled down the Pyramid of the Lost, Samir begged the Father to crush the Dark Lord's life sphere. Samir saw that they could destroy the Dark Lord's very essence, so that he would brood no more against the Father." In other words, when the Father first extracted the Dark Lord's essence into a life sphere, his lifeless body tumbled down. What happened to this lifeless body? Well, some say it somehow ended up on Earth and became a new person, that being Doom Guy. I'm not sure if I buy this theory personally, but I thought it would be interesting to bring up. On the subject of the Slayer, it seems his past will be elaborated on. For example, in the Fortress of Doom, you see this cutout photo. Could it be his family? A popular theory suggests that the Slayer lost his family back in the original Doom games, which prompted his rampage. His pet bunny Daisy being literally the last of his family he had left. I know this is sounding a lot like John Wick. Funny enough, the dog in that movie is also called Daisy. Coincidence? In other words, while we may have learned much from Ancient Gods 1, there are still many unknowns. What are the origins of the demonic Crucible? Where did the Sentinel meteor come from? Who is the Dark Priest? What is the connection between the Slayer and Devoth? Well, we might learn more in the culmination of the story. Hugo Martin has stated that Ancient Gods 2 will conclude the tale that began with Doom 2016. What will happen in the expansion? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Finally, this video is out. First off, I want to apologize for the ridiculous wait. I did not mean for this upload to take so long to get out. A lot of things have happened since Now in the Words video. But if it means absolutely anything, I aim to be much more frequent in uploads. In fact, I have been itching to do Score and Dusk Proteus videos lately, plus maybe something on Doom 64. Also, I will be streaming these games sometime soon. Something to hold you over until the next upload. Also, I do want to give out a special shout out to Artreii and Nemiko. Both took time out of their day to help out on this project. Artreii makes great videos on fictional languages, so feel free to check out his work, while Nemiko has a bunch of great music that you may be interested to listen to. In fact, some of Nemiko's music is playing right now. On that note, here are some fan art that was posted recently. I really appreciate this kind of work. If you have any art to share, feel free to get a hold of me on any of my social media. Would definitely give you a shout out here. Which brings up my special Patreon supporters. I do want to stress my sincere gratitude for you guys, especially when I'm so infrequent on uploads. You guys honestly deserve the world. If you want to see Night Owl continue on, donating as little as $1 over in Patreon will honestly go a long way. If not, liking and commenting also helps a great deal. But it is about that time again. Regardless of what happens, have a wonderful rest of the day or night, and have a damn good one.